I took some time this week to sit down and explore Steam NextFest, a multi-day celebration of upcoming games on Steam, where we get access to tons of demos, live streams, and developer commentary. This has quickly become one of my most anticipated Steam-related events. I've discovered so many great games and developers through these events. Now that I'm on this video journey, I figured this would be a great way to share the games that I enjoyed. Demos offer an incredible gift, the ability to try before you buy. Now in the past, these would come on discs you would get from Pizza Hut or out of a magazine, but thanks to the evolution of the internet, demos are widely available. Now normally, one wouldn't really review a demo. I mean, it's typically super short and usually only contains a single level or so. So I will be pulling my punches a bit and refrain from being too critical of these games. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about body cam games right now. I haven't played a ton, but I'm not immediately sold on the gimmick. I understand an argument for the camera style is that it feels more immersive. Well, I don't know that I really feel that way. It makes the footage I watch feel more immersive, but I don't know that it makes the gameplay feel more immersive. There was that game that went viral a few months ago where people couldn't believe it was real game footage, but the problem was nobody had actually played the game at that point. Does the body cam footage look realistic? Yeah. Does it feel more immersive? When I'm watching it, does playing a game through a body cam feel more immersive? I'm just not sold on it, so I don't think so. Bonefield is described as a tactical, hyper-realistic, body cam, home invasion game, and it was developed by Red Rock Game Studios. I checked their developer page and they have 3 games that are described as open-world survival horror, and they all look not so great. But I don't want to judge this game based on the developer's previous efforts. It's clear that they have something here. So the demo for Bonefield takes you through an abandoned house, and it seems that there are certain triggers set up throughout the level that advance you to a different stage. So for example, you walk up to a door, another door opens. That's basically the format. Now, the game itself feels a bit buggy, and I think I may have missed a trigger or something the first time I played this, because I spent 10 minutes walking around the house and nothing happened after a certain point. I started over and this time things were working, and I kinda wish they hadn't because this monster is really terrifying. You get a special black light that works almost like a camera flash, and I almost jumped out of my chair the first time I activated the black light and saw the monster rounding the corner. This happened at least 2 more times. You never really are prepared for it. Unfortunately, the demo ends pretty suddenly, and honestly, too early to really hook me into the game. I watched some previous playthroughs of the demo, and it seems like in the past this level was actually longer, so I'm not sure why it was shortened, but I'm not really sold on this game yet. It wasn't long enough to really hook me onto the premise. I mean, the monster was scary, but aside from that, I don't know. Have you ever played Hotline Miami and thought to yourself, I really like this style of game, but I wish I could kill people in first person? Well, today's your lucky day because I Am Your Beast is that game. The addicting, fast-paced, short-form first-person shooter developed by Strange Scaffold is a must-play. You take control of a retired agent of some kind, and you're needed for a mission. So the organization you work for sends other agents after you, invading your home deep in the woods. The goal of the game is simple: complete an objective and get the fuck out. Whether that be hack 3 laptops or kill every enemy, you will find yourself replaying these levels over and over again, trying to beat your best time, trying to get the coolest looking kills. This game makes you feel like you are the action movie. and it has an insane amount of replayability. I did not want to put this thing down. If I had to wishlist only one game from NextFest this year, this would be the winner. The combat is polished, the gunplay is great, you feel like a tornado ripping through these enemies. Nothing feels better in this game than getting 4 headshots in a row and throwing the gun at the 5th guy before you stomp his head in. I Am Your Beast is colorful hyper-violence at its very best. I am not a huge fan of the classic Resident Evil formula. I just never really found those types of survival horror games that interesting. I can absolutely respect them for what they are, and I completely understand why people enjoy them though. The security camera angles and tank controls are nearly a lost art, especially considering the Resident Evil remakes did away with them completely in favor of a true third-person camera. But I would wager that there are still a ton of people out there longing for a new game in that classic style, and this is where Hollowbody comes in. Hollowbody feels like a modernized version of a PS1 survival horror game. Hollowbody really grew on me. The futuristic in-ruin setting, the biological growth spreading through the apartment building like some sort of cancer. Hollowbody caught my attention and held on. It opens with your flying car crashing into the city streets below. The abandoned city feels sick, complemented by the color palette full of heavy grays and greens. You make your way to an apartment building in hopes to get high enough to get a signal on your radio. While exploring the apartments, you start to uncover the tragedy that happened there. You find late bills, medical documents chronicling an illness, children's drawings. You find fresh corpses with the causes of death being things like starvation. You pick up a good amount of ammo on your way through the building, and when you finally get to use it, you understand why the game gave you so much. These enemies are tough, and they take quite a few shots to go down. After I killed the first enemy, I was genuinely afraid to push the remaining 3 at the end of the hallway. Now, throughout the game, I only really encountered a handful of bugs. Basic things like camera triggers not working if I go between them too quickly. Nothing game-breaking by any means, which is impressive for a solo developer. Hollowbody hooked me in, and I will definitely be checking it out upon full release. I truly didn't know what to expect with this one. Right out of the gate, we are playing a first-person shooter with UI reminiscent of Fallout 1. You're tasked with finding supplies for your people, and there is some interesting lore about a figure known as the Life Mother, and your character resembles her. It's an interesting story idea that is complemented by Cronenberg-esque body horror as you discover mutated abominations. I think there is some lore here that points to cyberpunk-style body implants being the cause for the mutations, which is another element I just love. The gameplay has aspects of a retro-style FPS, maybe something that would have come out in the mid-2000s, but the dialogue paths of an RPG. On multiple occasions, you're given options when talking to people or inspecting bodies or objects. Some of these choices are necessary to proceed, like taking a key card from a body to unlock a door, for example. The gunplay was great, but I found out I was being a bit too conservative with my ammo. There was just something so satisfying about beating the enemies to death with the melee weapon. I just couldn't put it down. After going through a few puzzles, they decided to end this demo in the most badass way possible. Damn, okay. If you liked Starfield but wanted less of a Bethesda RPG, then I would definitely check out Moon Mystery. It's stated before the game starts that this is being worked on by a small team who works full-time, and I guess that disclaimer is usually to soften criticisms thrown its way, but I have to say, after playing this thing, I am genuinely impressed. This is the best looking game I've played so far, and it has a lot of polish and a lot of variety. The demo does what a good demo should do, and gives you a taste of pretty much everything the full game has to offer. Moon Mystery is a first-person shooter before anything else, so that is the part I'm going to focus on. It feels great, but I do have some complaints. The weapons just don't really feel responsive. I'm not sure how to elaborate on that though. It just feels kind of disconnected in a way. I felt like my aim wasn't consistent, and sometimes aiming down sights wouldn't work the first time. Some other complaints I have are minor, but the lens flares were a bit much. Aside from that, I was impressed and surprised at the complexity of the gameplay and the story being told. In the demo, you get a taste of FPS segments, vehicles like a buggy on the moon, a starfighter type ship, a submarine, and even a remote controlled robot. They all feel great to control, and the fact that they gave us all of this in the demo gives me high hopes for the final product. When I started this game, I wasn't really sure what to expect. One of those games where you piece together a car and see how far you can drive it? Yeah, I'll play that for about 15 minutes. On my first playthrough, I didn't really know what I was doing. So, I drove off-road for about 5 minutes. I figured that probably wasn't the intended route when I realized the rocks didn't have any collision. So I restarted, and that's when my journey really began. I played this demo for 2.5 hours, and the majority of the time, this was my experience. So why did I keep playing? Well, because of this. Every once in a while, I would happen upon a small location with some car parts, food, drinks, the occasional zombie, and even AK-47s. I drove so far that the radio stopped working. I went through 3 engines, and then I accidentally poured water into my engine instead of engine oil. I found necessary components and some unnecessary ones. By the end of my time with this game, I was cruising at 60 kilometers an hour, blasting Smashing Pumpkins as I swerved all over the road. After I started finding the same locations over and over again, I decided to call it quits. But not before hitting the 50-kilometer achievement. Drive Beyond Horizons caught me off guard. I was expecting something small, something dumb. Instead, what I got was a relaxing 2-hour cruise in the only model car that exists in this region for some reason. Oh, did I mention there were zombies? It's clear that there was a lot of passion put into this game, and it was fun. It was an enjoyable experience. I got more time out of this demo than I do other games. I mean, when I booted up the altars for the first time, I was expecting maybe another survival crafting game on an alien planet, and for a while, that's what I got. You were a builder named Jan Dolsky, who crash-landed on an alien planet while looking for a rare resource called rupidium. The rest of your crew perished during the crash, leaving you as the sole survivor. During your search for metals and organic resources, you find rupidium, only to then be warned that when the sun rises on this planet, it will kill you. So, in order to survive, you need to get the base moving again. But you're just a simple builder, and you can't repair things when they break. That's when you learn about the quantum computer and its ability to create life. You observe a very depressing timeline of events, your life up to this point. Harnessing the rupidium, you're instructed by a guide, I assume they're back on Earth, to create a clone of yourself with a different skill set. The quantum computer chooses a point in your life to branch off and predicts the outcome in a way that creates a technically savvy version of yourself. From this point on, I fell in love with this game. It's like a survival crafting dating sim, except instead of dating waifus, you're dating yourself. And the only reward is survival. The trailer at the end of the demo teases a bunch more versions that you bring to life. And I'm looking forward to the full release later this year. There are certainly a lot of games going around right now that focus on collecting and managing resources. That could be an interesting mechanic in a game if I feel like the gameplay is rewarding. I want to feel some sort of progression, like the gathering is a meaningful task. I think a perfect example of that is Minecraft. More often than not, every block you break has a purpose. So when I'm playing a resource gathering game, I want the stuff I'm gathering to mean something. First Dwarf is an interesting premise on paper, You are a first dwarf, meaning you scout and prepare for colonization. Gather some basic resources, build some necessities, set up some defenses, the usual stuff a civilization needs to start thriving. But there's a small catch. You pilot a dwarven mech, have a pet dragon, and the island you crash landed on is plagued by dark magic and monsters. In order to get through these games, I told myself that I would either play for an hour or until the demo was finished, whichever came first. But I'm finding myself getting lost in these games, and First Dwarf is no exception. The full demo ran a little over an hour and gives you a bit of everything the game has to offer. The instruction wasn't really clear at first. I was being given tooltips about needing mana before I was even able to build a mana well. I wasn't sure how I should build my defensive walls either. This led to me struggling to get through the first night when the monsters attacked, and all of my resources were defenseless. I quickly rectified that the following morning and got on with my gathering. It was very rewarding to finally call in the dwarves and have them move into their new homes. I felt like I had actually done something. First Dwarf has an excellent blend of gathering, building, combat, and exploration. The mech in this game is extremely fun to control. From the looks of it, in the future, you'll be able to modify the mech, give yourself different power-ups and abilities. If you've watched any video on this channel, I have probably mentioned a mech at least once, so we all know how I feel about mechs. MORN is a retro-style shooter that is being developed by Joseph Whitehead. It feels like someone ported Doom directly into Minecraft, and it's a beautiful combination. I need to say up front that I was so happy when I opened the settings and found the FOV was already set to 100. The developer is obviously a man of culture, and the surprises didn't stop there. Jumping into the 2 levels we get access to in the demo, this game plays out like classic Doom. You and your arsenal of weapons against various enemies while you hunt down keys to proceed forward. It's a simple formula and it works. I had a great time with this one. There isn't a ton of stuff to say about it. The enemy designs are cool, the weapons feel good, the movement is fluid, and the boss fight was pretty creative. I was not expecting level destruction. This is a solid game to hang up alongside Dusk, Cultic, Proteus, and Ultrakill as must-plays in the new wave of boomer shooters. I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy Elise at first. Being that I'm not a huge fan of survival horror, I was a little worried going into this one. I've played a few indie games like this before, and it's not really my thing. Survival horror is a fun genre for sure, but it's not the genre I immediately turn to when I'm looking for something new to play. That's why, despite waiting 12 years, it took me weeks to beat Alan Wake 2. I just don't have it in me. But then I saw a message from the developer. If you are one of the top 3 speedrunners for the demo by October, you win a copy of the game. So I was immediately in. I played through the game normally at first, and it's honestly not bad. It plays pretty well, runs well on my machine. I didn't have any major issues. The enemies died in a bit of a silly way, the ragdoll was out of control, but other than that, it's a decent foundation for a game I could see myself enjoying. Then I checked the Discord and noticed the entries people had left. 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes. I was sure I could beat the game faster than that. All you really have to do is memorize where the keys are and then beeline for them. So I planned my strategy. I didn't need to grab the M4. You already have plenty of ammo to head tap the enemies with the pistol, so that saved a few seconds. Then I memorized the puzzle solutions. I will say, I am not much of a speedrunner. I do not have the patience and consistency for this, but I pulled through and brought in the lowest time so far on the server. 5 minutes, 6 seconds. I'm not sure how long this lead will last, but for at least a little while, I can say I technically have a speedrunning world record. Oh yeah, and the game was fun. I forgot about that. The game was fun. By this point, I was a little burnt out of survival crafting games. But I felt like giving Aloft a chance because there was a gliding mechanic. And I'm glad I did, because this game is a gem. It does need some polish, especially when it comes to guiding the player, but overall I had a good time with it. There are a few systems in Aloft that you're going to need to be familiar with. Crafting and building is a big part of the game, but it's not so clear how it really works up front. To discover building recipes, you need to learn them by interacting with knowledge stones or other types of artifacts you find in the world. However, in order to learn crafting recipes, you just combine materials together. There's an interesting system where a material will have a yellow dot if it could be combined in the recipe, and the more materials you add, the more it filters out the recipe until you have all the ingredients you need. It was a little confusing at first, but at the end of the day, you just click the icons that have the yellow dots until there are no more yellow dots, and that's your recipe. It's a bit of an odd system, but it's not awful. Then you're introduced to the glider, a piece of equipment that allows you to soar through the air as though you were a bird. This isn't like the Breath of the Wild glider. Once you're in the air in this thing, you're gone. Whether you're going from island to island or just need a quick escape, the glider was easily the most fun part of this game for me. There are some other things to do with the islands, like having a list of requirements for an island to thrive. There are monsters that you need to kill, etc. But this is where I stopped playing. I was well over an hour into my playthrough, and didn't really feel like I was making much progress, so I set it down. Maybe this is one I'll pick up in the future, if not for the interesting flying mechanics alone. I want to give an honorable mention to some games that I played that didn't really warrant a full review. Not that they weren't fun and enjoyable, I just didn't really have much to say about them. A fun and cozy game about a girl and her journey to become a witch. It feels like a Studio Ghibli movie set in the 1600s, and I really enjoyed it. Also, giant mech house. I don't have a lot to say about this one. It's pod racing. Did you like the Phantom Menace? Did you at least like the pod racing scenes? Okay, well, how about the pod racing game for the N64? Everybody liked that. Deathgrip is just like that, and it's hard. If you fall behind, you're not catching up, so just restart. And try not to run into the... ooh. This is definitely an old school rally game. I'm impressed that it controls almost identically to games like Dirt, while also looking like it was ported directly from the Sega Saturn. Not my type of game, but definitely not bad either. The most fear-like shooter I played in this batch of games. The game was fun, but the demo was too short for me to really form a solid opinion. I know Once Human was the crown jewel of Steam NextFest this year. It had the highest player count by far, but that was one reason I didn't want to spend too much time on it. Steam NextFest for me is about highlighting upcoming games from independent developers, and that's what I wanted to focus on. So, I mean, it looks fun. It looks a lot like a Kojima game, and Rust put together, maybe, but I don't know, not my thing. This was another game I didn't want to spend too much time on. The other big player this year, and for good reason. This game was a blast. The driving is fun, the first-person segments are weird, and it has a long-ass name. But all around, it was a good time. I spent the majority of it maxing out my speedometer on the highway. I loved that I was being incentivized to break the law and go literally as fast as I possibly could. Great game. I've said this before, but Steam NextFest is a really important event for me. I've dabbled in game development myself, and having a space to showcase these smaller games is essential for them to succeed. Of course, the bigger games like Once Human and Test Drive are going to dominate the front page, but others like me are going to scroll and scroll and scroll until they find a handful of games that pique their interest. Games like Hollowbody, Elise, and First Dwarf. Things I never would have tried if they hadn't been included in NextFest. Incredibly charming games with great concepts and ideas that wouldn't have even been given the time of day at a AAA studio. Supporting independent games that you enjoy is the best way to make sure they keep getting made. And if you look hard enough, you will find one you enjoy. I promise you that. I'm very much looking forward to the next Steam NextFest, as well as the release of all these titles. Let me know what demos were your favorite this time around, especially any that I missed. Thanks for watching.